Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. The government's coffers are capable of implementing the newly announced rice subsidies. Deputy Finance Minister Datuk Sri Ahmad Maslan said the ministry would prepare the funds to deal with the problem of rising prices of imported white rice and increased demand for local white rice.
Ahmad said the additional funds would come from savings from projects, additional revenue from the Inland Revenue Board and Customs Department. However, he said the Dewan Rakyat would have to approve an additional budget of between 350 million ringgit and 400 million ringgit for this when the time comes. He added that Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim would conduct a weekly review of the supply and demand situation to see if an increase was necessary. On Monday, the Prime Minister announced 4 intervention measures to help Malaysians manage the supply and demand of rice. These include increased distribution of local white rice to rural areas and sundry shops, with the government covering transport costs. The government also announced a subsidy of 590 ringgit per tonne for imported white rice in Sabah and Sarawak.
Separately, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said legal action will be taken against those found hoarding rice in the country. He said that he had given instructions to the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Datuk Sri Muhammad Sabu, to ensure that the ministry's enforcement agencies monitored the matter and took action against offenders.
Ada juga kalangan yang salah guna, yang sorok, simpan. Dan saya bagi tahu Saudara Ahmad Sabu, arahan yang jelas pada badan penguatkuasa. Kalau ada yang berani buat perangai buruk dalam keadaan orang susah cari beras, kamu sorok, kamu jaga. Kami akan cari kamu dan saman dan bawa kamu ke mahkamah. Tengah orang susah, masa itu kamu nak cari untung.
The Air Pollution Index API readings at 2 locations in the peninsula remained unhealthy as of 8 p.m. today. Now, this include Cheras in Kuala Lumpur and Nilai in Negeri Sembilan, where both reported readings of 153. Air quality readings of 101 to 200 are categorized as unhealthy. Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Minister Nik Nazmi Nik Ahmad announced today that cloud seedings would be carried out in areas where the API reading hovered above 150 in the unhealthy air quality range for over 24 hours. Nik Nazmi Nik Ahmad also confirmed that the current haze situation in Malaysia does not stem from open burning within the country. He added that the current air quality levels are expected to persist for the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Kalau menyentuh tentang peningkatan bilangan stesen yang mencatat IPU tidak sihat dalam beberapa hari kebelakangan ini, ia bukan disebabkan oleh jerebu tempatan. Ini berdasarkan bacaan stesen-stesen IPU yang ada di dalam negara. Dan berdasarkan semakan NRECC, tidak ada kejadian kebakaran berskala besar yang berlaku di dalam negara buat masa ini. Ya, memang sebagaimana saya tekankan, sebelum ini pernah dalam beberapa situasi jerebu pada awal tahun, pada pertengahan tahun ini dan sebagainya, kita tengok ada berlaku, tetapi bukan dalam insiden yang berlaku pada beberapa hari kebelakangan ini.
Legislation could be the key to effectively combat the ongoing issue of transboundary haze. Heng Kia Chun from Greenpeace Southeast Asia outlines the organization's demands in response to deteriorating air quality.
This is very important to enact a domestic transboundary haze law to ensure that the company are not contributing to haze locally and abroad. For example, like enacting a domestic transboundary haze act is necessary to act as a deterrent, especially if they are bad apple in the industry. And this can provide a legal ground for each country to institutionalize a check and balance to ensure their own company to operate responsibly. So in particular, Greenpeace demand ASEAN states to develop a regional framework to hold corporate entity accountable for domestic forest fire due to the peatland clearance and agricultural residue burning. The second mandates all companies known for clearing out the forest to publicly disclose and publish concessions map to be shared across ASEAN member states to improve transparency in their supply chain. The third one is to agree on a standardized air quality indicator to be used in all ASEAN member states to monitor and track air pollution based on a common methodology and act accordingly.
According to Heng, ASEAN must hold their overseas firms accountable to effectively tackle the long-standing haze crisis.
Previously, I think ASEAN country, they always use so-called ASEAN way, which is diplomatic way to deal with this transboundary pollution issue, which means that they do not interfere others' country problems. What we want to highlight that we can learn and also draw some inspirations from the Singapore's Transboundary Haze Act, so for a better versions in Malaysia's one. For example, Malaysia's government can also focus on enacting the Domestic Transboundary Haze Pollutions Act, and then to focus on Malaysian-owned company so that it can reduce the interference issues that are raised by Indonesian governments last time. So this is a way forward to prove that Malaysian-owned companies are not contributing to forest fire, like mentioned by Indonesian government. So if all the countries that can make sure their own company to operate in a responsible way, then we can solve this transboundary haze pollutions problem. Transboundary haze pollutions happen for more than 20 years, and ASEAN countries that keep saying that they use ASEAN way to do it, and until now the transboundary pollution still happens. So why don't we give Transboundary Haze Act a try?
Indonesian firefighters are working to extinguish fires in more than 300 forest and peatland areas on the island of Sumatra, but their work has been hampered by extremely dry weather. Air quality in Indonesia has now deteriorated to levels unsafe for activities such as school and travel, prompting the government to ask people to work from home.
The smoky haze drifted from the fires towards Palembang, causing unhealthy air conditions for the area's 1.7 million people. The government in South Sumatra last week called on schools to delay their opening time as the haze tends to decrease during the day. But on Monday, the schools asked students to attend classes online as the air quality had worsened and was categorized as dangerous. The Indonesian government, through the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, has denied allegations that forest fires in Sumatra and its portion of Borneo Island have also affected air quality in neighbouring Malaysia and Singapore.
Over 500,000 housewives are expected to register for the Housewives Social Security Scheme, or the SKSSR, by the end of this year. To achieve this, more online advertisements and awareness campaigns will be launched throughout the next 3 months as part of the campaign.
The Ayo Daftar Suri Advocacy campaign, launched by Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Aziza Wan Ismail, was to ensure social justice and welfare for women. According to her, women aged from 15 to 64 years old represent 49.33% of the total Malaysian population, and they make up a huge amount of our national gross domestic product, GDP. Housewives in particular, through unpaid work by managing family affairs in the care economy, contribute heavily to our economy, even if they usually go unrecognized. The new awareness campaign, she said, would employ the use of all available platforms across the various related ministries to advertise the scheme to the public. The SKSSR was previously implemented on December 1st, 2022, under the Housewives Social Security Act 2022, with the goal of providing social security protection to housewives against domestic injury, illnesses and invalidity while managing their households. The scheme requires a contribution of only 120 ringgit a year, which can be made either by the housewife herself or by her husband, family members, or any other third party.
We'll take a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Tiga, dua, satu. Bersedia dengan kamera anda. 7 Oktober, 4 petang, Pavilion KL. Kami menantikan anda.
Welcome back. 3 people were killed and at least 3 others wounded after a shooting at Bangkok's Siam Paragon Mall. Thai police have arrested a 14-year-old suspect who had used a handgun. Footage on social media earlier showed shoppers running out of Siam Paragon, which is one of the capital's top shopping destinations. The mall, as well as nearby Siam metro station, were then closed. The shooting comes almost a year after one of the bloodiest incidents in recent Thai history, where a former police officer attacked a nursery with a knife and gun, killing 24 children and 12 adults. Japan has recorded its hottest September since records began 125 years ago, in what is expected to be the warmest year in human history. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, the average temperature last month was 2.66 degrees Celsius higher than usual.
In a statement, the agency said the figure was the highest since the start of statistics in 1898. A total of 153 observation locations broke an average temperature record across Japan last month. This included Tokyo with an all-time high of 26.7 degrees Celsius, Osaka with 27.9 degrees Celsius, and Nagoya with 27.3 degrees Celsius. With climate change accelerating, other countries including Austria, France, Poland, Switzerland and Germany have also announced their warmest September on record.
The International Coral Reef Initiative said it would raise $12 billion to protect coral reefs from threats such as pollution and overfishing. Funding would be derived from public and private investment to help conserve and restore coral ecosystems, which sustain a quarter of the world's marine species and more than 1 billion people.
Despite the initiative, experts warn the funding would be only a drop in the ocean unless broader climate risks are addressed. Coral reefs have come under increasing pressure as a result of rising marine pollution, destructive coastal development, and fishing fleets. But rising temperatures are the bigger risk, which leads to coral bleaching. The International Coral Reef was launched in 1994 by Australia, France, Japan, Jamaica, the Philippines, Sweden, Britain, and the United States. Its members now include 45 countries that represent 3/4 of the world's coral reefs.
India has instructed Canada to repatriate 41 diplomats by October 10th, according to a report by Financial Times. Now, this marks an escalation in the crisis that erupted between the two countries over the murder of a Sikh separatist leader and Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
The news portal, citing people familiar with the Indian demand, said India had threatened to revoke the diplomatic immunity of those diplomats told to leave if they remain after October 10th. It said that Canada has 62 diplomats in India, and India had said that the total should be reduced by 41. A rift between the two began after Canada accused India of involvement in the killing of Nijjar in British Columbia. He was shot dead outside a Sikh temple just 3 years after India had designated him as a terrorist. India has dismissed the allegation as absurd, and shortly after Ottawa expelled a top Indian official, India expelled a senior Canadian diplomat in a tit-for-tat move. India also recently suspended new visas for Canadians and asked Ottawa to reduce its diplomatic presence in the country.
Separately, Indian police raided the homes of several journalists in connection with an investigation into the funding of news website NewsClick. The attack on one of India's few remaining independent news outlets deepens concerns over the increase in crackdown on media freedom in the country.
Police reportedly seized mobile phones and laptops of those they raided, with searches underway at the website's office in Delhi. Officials are reportedly investigating allegations that NewsClick received illegal funds from China, a charge it denies. Founded in 2009, NewsClick is known to be one of the few independent news outlets that is critical of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government. Since Modi came to power in 2014, a number of media outlets have been investigated for financial impropriety, raising fears about press freedom in the world's largest democracy. In February this year, Indian authorities searched the BBC's New Delhi and Mumbai offices over accusations of tax evasion.
That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching and good night.